Bobby Bones Show.
It is always a treat. We'll say now he's a returning guest because he is. He's one of our favorite guests. Dr. Francis S. Collins, director of the National Institutes of Health, is on with us. Love when you're on. Let's welcome him, everybody. Dr. Collins, how are you?
Oh, that's so nice to be welcomed that way. I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. You're like the smartest guy we talk to. So we appreciate the fact that you'll give us a few minutes because, first of all, I have so many questions. Are you ready for them?
Yeah, go ahead. Hit me.
Okay, so I'm going to get the booster maybe today. So
Good.
should I, when I get this booster, should I expect to be more sick than before, less sick than before, or do we just not know?
It's a little unpredictable. It does seem that it's a similar kind of reaction for most people from the booster to maybe what you had with your second dose if you had Pfizer or Moderna, but sometimes it's a little easier, sometimes not so much. I think you'll be fine. You might be a little chilly, might be a little fatigued, but 24, 36 hours later, you'll be back to normal and ready to go. And you'll be very well protected against this doggone virus.
So I had Pfizer. Do I need to go get a Pfizer booster or what's that situation?
Yeah, ideally, you kind of stick with the one you went to the dance with. So get a Pfizer booster. But if for some reason they don't happen to have that, the Moderna booster will be fine for you as well. And a J&J wouldn't be bad either. But most people are kind of sticking with the same thing.
Yeah, I'm not get that J&J. I'm gonna be honest with you, Dr. Collins. I'm just gonna hold out till I get another one. We heard a story about a guy who received 10 vaccinations in one day because he was doing that. He was using other people's names. They were paying him. And so he'd get a vaccination and then give them the card. Now that's shady and we shouldn't do that. But I wonder what would happen to him when he gets 10 vaccinations at one time.
Well, that's called an overdose. He probably had a pretty impressive 24, 48 hours of a reaction to that. His immune system must have gone like, whoa, we just got hit with way too much stuff here. Not recommended at all. There's a reason why we choose the doses of things and not just drugs, but also vaccines. So yeah, not a good idea. Probably he's okay, but I would certainly not have recommended that behavior.
Is it too late to get the flu shot right now?
No, it is not. In fact, you can get the flu shot at the same time you get your booster, one in each arm or maybe both in one arm, because there's no reason not to do them together and kind of take care of it while you're there.
Now, just candidly, I don't like, I wear masks when people say wear a mask, but at this point, I've got my vaccines. I feel good. I put the mask on for places I must have a mask, but I don't like wearing masks. I don't think anyone likes to wear masks. How long is this going to be a thing though?
It's hard to say because of this doggone Omicron variant that is now coming to the forefront and is clearly very contagious, probably more so than Delta, which is what we've been dealing with for the past several months. And if that's the case, and if it's capable of making somebody infectious, even with no symptoms, even if they've been vaccinated, then the mask is still the best idea to protect other people from you in case you happen to be carrying it. So I'm sick of it too, but I'm going to say we should still all be wearing masks when we're indoors around other people who may or may not be vaccinated, not necessarily to protect ourselves as much as to protect them. This is a love your neighbor kind of thing.
What about airplanes? Like I just got off a 5.5-hour flight and you have to wear a mask the whole time. And I do. And I'm not anti-mask. I just don't like to wear masks. And so when will that stop?
Not anytime soon, especially with Omicron, because we know how infectious that can be. So we've just extended that requirement for masks for airplanes and trains for a while longer as a way of keeping people safe. They're working, by the way. There are very few examples where people got infected on a plane. It's probably one of the safest places to be, but it's because people are wearing masks. So yeah, I'm sorry. We still have to make a little sacrifice here. I know it's unpleasant.
But if you wrote me a note, right, and I had a note from Dr. Francis S. Collins, the director of National Institutes of Health, and it said Bobby does not have to wear a mask on an airplane, and I showed that to the pilot and the flight attendant, you think they'd let me off?
No, they'd say, that's got to be bogus. We were paying attention to the news. He wouldn't say that.
That's true. I get a lot of questions from listeners about being pregnant or thinking of having a baby. Is it okay for someone who is pregnant or planning to have a kid soon to, one, have we found out any new information about the vaccine period, and then especially when it comes to the booster?
We have more information, and every time we get more information, it's more encouraging that this is absolutely safe. All of those rumors that were out there that the vaccines were going to cause infertility simply have absolutely no evidence to back them up. And in pregnancy, what we have learned is if you're pregnant and you're not vaccinated and you get sick, you can get very sick. You can even lose the baby as a result of being very sick. So if anybody particularly wants to, I think, get vaccinated to help themselves and their baby, it's pregnant women. We have lots of evidence now that that's by far the best thing you can do, and that applies to boosters too.
So I'm not a needle guy. I don't know many people that are, but I really struggle with getting any sort of shot at all. And so what's the difference in just a general shot and getting one in your arm versus getting one in your hip or your butt?
Well, the idea is you want to get it into a muscle, and the easiest muscle to get to without making you disrobe in an embarrassing way is your shoulder. So that's why we do it there. I don't know whether there's been any specific experiments with these vaccines in your butt, but they would probably work there. It's just most people would just as soon not have to do that kind of mooning in order to get immunized.
Okay, that makes sense. I just didn't know if the butt was like a better, but it's vanity. People are so vain, they don't want to show their butt.
I totally approve of that kind of vanity, by the way.
I've heard of a lot of people who have had COVID and they don't get vaccinated because of natural immunity. What are your thoughts on that line of thinking?
Well, it's a really important question. Natural immunity, that is what you get from having had COVID, does provide you with some protection against getting reinfected, but we have a lot of data on that now. And it turns out natural immunity is only so good, and it may not be much good at all against Omicron. Whereas the vaccines on top of that natural immunity give you a whole lot more protection. So even if you've had COVID, if you want to not get it again, get the vaccine, get the booster, get everything you can get to get your immune system revved up and ready to take on that virus if it comes back again.
Dr. Collins, we were talking about your book, and it's called The Language of God. And, someone who takes from faith and science. And can you kind of, it's going to be difficult to paraphrase the whole book, but can you tell me what this book is about and how you took from both to actually present this?
I'll try. I'm a person of faith, although I didn't grow up that way. I became a believer in my 20s as part of my experience in medical training. And people thought, well, you're in trouble because you also are interested in science and those things won't get along. It's not been a problem, not even once. I think of science as the way to explore God's creation, which is nature. But science falls short in trying to answer other questions about God, like, well, is God there? And how did this all happen? And why am I here? And I think it's great to be able to ask all those questions and depend on science for the ones about nature and on faith about the ones about meaning. I don't see any conflict between those as long as you're careful about what kind of question you're asking, and as long as you don't ask the Bible to turn into a science textbook, which it was never intended to be.
One of my final questions to you is, why are you retiring? Because we like having you. We like asking you questions that people would think we were dumb for asking, but we don't feel dumb asking you these questions. Like, why are you retiring?
Well, Bobby, it's been 12 years that I have been leading the National Institutes of Health. It is an incredibly intense and exhausting job, but it also is a job that needs new vision now and then. No other NIH director had ever hung around this long. I am way past my shelf life. And I'm also interested in going back to my lab, which I've been running for the last 28 years, but not paying as much attention to as I might. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not retiring. I'm not going to go play golf, but I'm going to be deeply engaged in research on diabetes and aging and see what we can learn in a hurry here that might help people.
Aging. See, that's what I need info on. I'm 41 now, and I'd like to go backward. Like, what can I do? Because I want to go Benjamin Buttons here.
Well, you can certainly do all the things that we all recommend to keep yourself healthy. Don't smoke, exercise, eat a decent diet, get some sleep now and then. I'm talking to myself here. I wasn't very good at that one. Figure out a way to reduce your stress with things like getting involved in spiritual practices, meditation. Music is a great way as well. That's one of my favorites. do all those things. But another thing we're working on, Bobby, and you should watch this, and maybe you should join it, is a program called All of Us, which enables 1 million people to be part of our efforts to figure out, how do you stay healthy? How do you fight off disease? So go to allofus.org and see if you'd like to join those 1 million people who are going to help us get answers to your question about how do you stay healthy at age 41.
Dr. Francis S. Collins, the director of the National Institutes of Health, is on with us. It is always an honor to talk to you. If you don't mind, I have a couple really dumb guy questions to ask that if anyone would know the answer, you would. But how come every year I still get a cold? Like, how have we not stamped out the cold yet?
Well, isn't this ironic? You know what causes the common cold? There's a few viruses, but the main one is guess what? Wait for it, a coronavirus. It's in the same family as COVID-19. So if we come up with a really good vaccine that gets all coronaviruses, we might just by accident cure the common cold at the same time. So you might still have some chance of getting away from that.
Wouldn't that be wild if the common cold is cured because of this?
It'd be awesome.
This is your opportunity. Anyone have any dumb person questions they want to ask our favorite, smartest guest of all time? Around the room.
I had one that popped into my head, but I don't know if I don't know. This is just from speaking of aging and different things. My girlfriends and I were sitting around the other day talking about Botox, and I just was curious your take on that and it being a poison to your body. And I know so many women and men get it. So I'm just curious your thoughts on it.
Well, do people remember where Botox came from?
No.
It comes from botulinum. It's a poison, which if you accidentally get too much of it, stops you breathing. It basically paralyzes muscles. Now that's good for cosmetic purposes. If you would like to have the wrinkles in your forehead relaxed, I wouldn't mind that actually, but I haven't taken advantage of it. It actually can help also people who have forms of paralysis that involve some spasticity. Botox can relax those spastic muscles. So it does have valid medical applications. I don't think there's any harm in it other than maybe to your wallet, because a lot of these cost a lot of money.
How do you feel about that answer?
I feel good about it. I just was wondering if, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just something that a lot of women think about when you hear it's poison. You're like, oh shoot. But yeah.
Lunchbox.
I always put my kids to bed with wet hair, and my wife says, you're going to give them a cold because they have wet hair when they go to bed. Is that really true? Do they get sick because they have wet hair when they go to sleep?
No, probably not. You can tell your wife it's okay. It's not going to hurt. You know, what causes a cold? It's a virus. So having your hair wet is not going to make a virus suddenly appear out of nowhere. This goes back a long way. You know, a cold draft. Oh, now I'm going to get sick because that cold wind blew on me. Not really, unless that cold wind actually was carrying some viruses right into your nose. Colds, they're a viral disease, so you got to do all the things you can to avoid that, like washing your hands. But otherwise, wet hair, cold drafts, not so much.
Dr. Collins, let me say, first of all, congratulations. I know you're not quitting working, but you are moving on from this position. I know you say 12 years, I believe is what you said, but I know the last couple had to feel like 50 years because, you know, hopping into this position, you just don't expect a worldwide pandemic to happen. So let me commend you for what you've done and what you provided, not only to us here on the show, but for our country as a whole, because, you know, we need leaders like you. I'm sad to see you moving on, but for you to say you need new leadership, you know, I'm scared because I like your leadership. I'm just being honest with you, Dr. Collins, but thank you for what you've done for us as a show and as a country.
Oh, thank you. You're very gracious indeed. It's been great talking to you. And even when I'm not the NIH director, I might be willing to come back and talk about almost anything. You guys are fun.
Well, you know, we got some really dumb questions that we're serious about. And you answer them and you don't make us feel seven like we should. So Dr. Collins, thank you. And I hope you have a great Merry Christmas.
Okay. And same to you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Bye, Dr.
This is a Bobby Bones Show.